Good day and hello, my name is Brian. I think I will partially explain one tool a little bit. This is a sort of an addendum to the video I just uploaded, which is tools of thought, basically how they work. And one thing I did say in there is I would not really guide anyone through explaining how I really put them together too much, or how they actually work, or break them down too much for people, because part of the point is to use the tools themselves to do that, and that's always a personal experience in most things, because it's how do you understand it, not necessarily how I understand it, but how do you understand it. The exception to this that I'm going to do is basically broadly the golden rule, which is also related to the silver rule. And part of that is because a lot of the different tools are, one, breaking up how you can use that tool in different ways, and explaining how that in general actually works. Because what's interesting is the corollaries I have seen, which is a fancy word for, even then I might be using the word incorrectly, is a lot of things that look very, very, very similar to it. Very much like, I can't say the same because they're not the same, but things that look almost the same as it in many different aspects. And that's what sort of prompted me looking through a lot of the stuff a lot more. The golden rule and the relative, the silver rule, well, I'll start with the silver rule. Do not do to others what you would not want them to do to you. Then the golden rule is to do for others what you want them to do to you. And I sort of sum that up by leading by example. Now, up front, it doesn't really match up with a few of the things I'm going to point out it matches up with. Once you start looking at it, though, and how it applies, and also the reactions and how the effects are on that, you start seeing where the comparisons actually start matching up, and you probably go, oh my goodness, this is interesting stuff. So I'm not really going to explain the connections that I see between these. I'm just going to point out that I see connections between these, because part of this is to use the tools to inspect and see if you can find the matchups that I see, and whether or not there actually is any matchups or not. Well, on a social interaction scale, the golden rule is basically what I think is, in its variations, a sum up of how people learn things, and also how things grow and change. Now, what's interesting is once you can start working through understanding what I just said, well, on a different scale, what's something very similar? Well, on a physical science bent, I think it's the second law of thermodynamics or not thermodynamics, but the Newtonian laws and stuff, basically is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, in some ways, that's almost the same phrasing. Well, not the same phrasing, but a different way of phrasing the same thing as saying the golden rule: do for others what you'd like them to do back. And that's in a science bent. And what's funny is, like I said, when you break it down, it seems almost the same thing in a lot of ways. And because of that different thing, is then I can start looking at different applications of science and applying them in a similar manner to different applications of sociology, and also applying different applications of sociology back into science. And of course, that's just the physical science. What's interesting is then, of course, there's also applications of this in life science, dealing with, what was it called? I think the title was altruistic reciprocity. A couple different things. Basically, they noticed that there's actually evidence of this in evolution, actually. And part of it is the idea of survival in different ways, but also not necessarily immediate survival, extended survival, which is what is interesting is a lot of people usually focus on one step. They don't look at what comes on in the future steps. They don't plan ahead, per se. And it's just interesting looking through all the different combinations and variations that are presented through all that. And, well, I guess this is just a good time to sign off and let you have some food for thought. Of course, I'm always looking for any feedback, good, bad, otherwise, because how am I supposed to know what other people think unless they actually tell me what they think? So, I hope you have a beautiful day.